company dismissed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Wow, welcome back to another edition of Sky Blue History Podcast with Jim Brown and myself, Claudio Cardino. Good evening, Jim. How are you feeling today?
Good evening, Claudio. Yes, I'm good. Enjoying the nice weather until it started to rain about an hour ago. Yes.
Well,
all things good.
I don't mind about the rain. I've had my roof fixed, so brand new roof, so I'm good to go. It can rain as much as it wants now. Now, well, we're well into the close season, although there are some championship matches going on, which obviously will be the playoff final at the weekend, which we're not taking part in. What do you think? Leeds or Southampton to go up?
Well, I was quite surprised that Leeds, that both teams turned it on in the second leg, because they both had dodgy run-ins, haven't they? But Leeds came good. Norwich seemed to implode.
Yeah.
And I see Angus Gunn, who was in the second tier podcast, was their goalkeeper of the season. Had a nightmare.
Yeah, that happens, doesn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, Southampton looked very strong. They're the best two sides. Both just come out of the Premiership. It's going to be an interesting one. It should be a good game because they both like to go forward, don't they?
Yeah, and I think Ipswich just threw the spanner in the works, didn't they? Because I predicted those three to go up and Ipswich to be close. So, yeah, fair play to Ipswich for getting up there. I feel Southampton will sneak it, personally.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you? I think from a Sky Blue point of view, I think I'd prefer Leeds to go up because they're going to be strong again next year, probably stronger than Southampton if they stay down. Although they'll lose players like Somerville and Rutter, I would have thought.
Yeah, there's got to be bids coming in from other clubs, I'd imagine.
Yeah,
the wage bill and all that, they'll have to reduce it. So it'll be interesting. And of course, hopefully, we'll have some new signings for our club, which would be nice.
Yes.
Although, give it a month's time, and there'll be lots of finger tapping on tables and thinking, "Come on, when we're going to sign somebody?" But we'll see what happens. Now, if you want to talk to us about any particular part of our history, and you can contact us on, contact Jim at claryborton@gmail.com. Now, obviously, when you watch this later on in the week on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that on the ticker going across the screen, so you'll have plenty of time to take down the email. And please do contact us, and we're happy to talk about anything, aren't we, Jim?
We are, yes. And in fact, tonight's subject was requested by one of our listeners.
And it was talking about non-league players who've made it into the first team. And so, Jim, you've come up with your top 10.
I have, yes.
So this will be interesting.
Yes, it should be. I'm going to go through it 10 down to 1 on a countdown. But before I do it, just talk about some of the players who didn't quite make the top 10. And the first one is quite recently, and that's Sam McCallum. He came from Herne Bay, and he was quite young, but he was very quickly into the first team, wasn't he?
Yeah, I like Sam, and he's on a free at the minute, I believe. He's been released. Yes, he's been released by his club, so I wouldn't mind him back.
Wow. Another one, not too long ago. You might have forgotten about him, but a lad from Dulwich Hamlet called Rhys Alassani.
Yeah,
he go on.
No, I remember him coming on at Gillingham, and I thought it looked really good. In the pouring rain on a bank holiday Monday, I think it was, in August time, and he came on and looked really good. And I think did he ACL? I think
he did, yes. And didn't he end up going back to Dulwich?
Yeah, and they were producing some decent players at the time as well, Dulwich Hamlet. And I thought it was going to do well for us, but I think Mark Robbins soon moves them on, doesn't he, if he's not too keen?
Yes, he just looking at his record, he only made one start and 5 sub appearances, and last heard of back at Dulwich in 2019.
Oh.
But, so some of the other ones then, back in the 80s, a couple of players who joined around the 86 time was Paul Culpin. You must remember him. The magnificent scoring record at Nuneaton. Andy Williams, who came from Solihull Borough.
Yeah.
Not the singer, I might add.
I think at times you could have done with the singer.
Yeah.
And Paul Culpin, if you remember, he looked like a fish out of water. It was weird. He was scoring goals from reserves as well, wasn't he? I think
he scored a lot for the reserves. Yeah,
and I remember him playing one game where he spent most of the time just offside. He was completely off the pace every time he played. I used to think.
Yeah, going back into the 60s, a lad called Peter Denton, a tricky winger who signed from Gorleston. But he was hampered by the fact that he had Ronnie Rees and Dave Clements, good wingers at the time. So he didn't get many games. Going further back into the 50s, I'll mention George Curtis because he did come from non-league. He played for Snowdon Colliery, but he joined almost from school. Right. So I don't really count that as non-league, to be honest.
Yeah, I did. I looked at your list and I did say, he's not put George Curtis. I thought there must be a reason for that. Right.
Yeah. Then going even further back, there were Dick Mason, a fullback in the late 40s. No relation to George Mason, but he came from Nuneaton Borough again. So that was Nuneaton was a good hunting ground for City. They signed a lot of players from Nuneaton over the years. So should we start with number 10 then?
Well, yeah, I haven't got the Top of the Pops countdown, so we just have to forget the music and go straight in at number 10.
Straight in at number 10. A Brummie. There's a couple of Brummies there's more than a couple. There's 3 Brummies in the top 10. Andy Pearce, centre half. Do you remember Andy?
I do, yes. I think I'm wearing a shirt he probably played in.
Yes. Yeah, he was signed from Hales Owen, who I think they've had a pretty strong team in those days. And the number 9 we'll talk about in a minute, he also came from Hales Owen. He joined us in 1990, and he was a centre half. He made his debut at Ellen Road. I'm trying to think who he played alongside. Would it have been
Peter Billing? Maybe would have been playing with Peter Billing?
Brian Kilcline.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it'd be Kilcline's final season. So this is just after Terry Butcher took over. So This is when Butcher was trying to get rid of the 87 boys, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. Well, he sort of made space for himself, didn't he? And then realised he couldn't play anymore.
Yeah, so he made his debut at Ellen Road in a 2-0 defeat. And then he made his home debut 4 days later, and he scored. He scored the winner.
And who was that against?
Luton Town. Graham Rogers scored for Luton.
Right.
Which was a rare goal for him, I think.
Yeah.
Brian Burrows got a penalty on the hour. And then Andy Pearce popped up. I think it was a diving header at the West End in the 83rd minute. Well, a centre half signing and scoring on his home debut. That must be rare, mustn't it?
I can't think of we haven't really had prolific centre-half goal scorers, have we? I mean, Kilcline's probably the closest because he took penalties. But we've never had a Steve Bruce, have we?
No. I think Reader Johnson was promising to be a top goal scorer, but then he lost his form. So what happened to Andy? He played 80 odd games.
Right.
Scored 4 goals, and he joined Sheffield Wednesday for quite a big fee, I seem to remember. Was it $500,000?
It wasn't some sort of record at the time for a centre half for us. It was something.
Yeah.
It was definitely a large sum because I know he moved to Wimbledon for more than $500,000.
Yeah, he played two seasons at Hillsborough, was virtual ever present, and then, as you say, he went to Wimbledon, and he only played 8 games. I think he possibly got injured. I don't know, but he later played for Hearts in Scotland and Aldershot Town.
It's interesting because I don't think it would happen now, would it? Where you can, I mean, we're in the sort of bottom half of the top league, so we're looking at maybe a Wolves nowadays. They wouldn't sign somebody from Hales Owen, would they? And put them straight in at centre half. It just wouldn't happen, would it?
No. Norwich City, actually.
No, exactly. It's changed so much. There must be a stigma around it now. Whereas those days, it was like, oh, give the lad a chance. It was a totally different attitude.
Yeah, but it must have been quite difficult to step up because I think Andy worked on the building sites before he came to Coventry. So he went from, doing a day job and probably training a couple of nights a week to being a full-time professional in the First Division. It's staggering, isn't it?
It is.
He's scoring on his home debut.
Yeah, and I remember he had a very upright stance, didn't he? He was. I spoke to him a few years ago. He joined the Former Players Association, and I spoke to him, but he'd gone back to being in the building trade. I think he had his own business in Birmingham, but he's never been to an event. He's I don't know, one of these types who didn't feel he contributed a lot to the club's history, but they're all welcome, aren't they? Yeah, definitely, most definitely.
So let's move up to number 9, shall we?
Yeah, number 9 then.
Teammate of Andy Pearce, Sean Flynn.
Yeah, his brother's quite a character. He's on social media quite a lot, and he keeps going on about Sean. So maybe we should get him on in one episode. It's Sean, that is, not his brother.
Yeah, well, but he's another one who's in the Former Players Association, but has never been to an event and hasn't shown any real interest in coming to games. So he was another Hales Owen chap. He joined in 91. So it'd probably be about 6 months after Andy Pearce.
Was that a case of Andy Pearce telling us to go and get Sean Flynn?
It might have been. Didn't we play them in a friendly at Highfield Road, a pre-season friendly, and they beat us?
Yes.
I'm sure they did.
That wouldn't surprise me. I think you're right.
I'm sure they did, yeah. But I think it was a pre-season of 91 too. It was maybe part of the deal with the Pearce transfer, right, that they came to Highfield and they embarrassed us. But yeah, Sean, it was another butcher signing, and they did it again. He scored on his debut. His debut was on Boxing Day at Bramall Lane, and we won 3-0.
That's a good win.
It was. Stuart Robson, Sean Flynn and Peter Billing, 3 very unlikely goal scorers.
yeah. Well, it's amazing. Stuart Robson's on the pitch.
But I think it didn't save Terry Butcher's job because he was sacked. He was sacked 10 days later.
Gosh.
So Sean Flynn must have been his last signing. It's
interesting because I don't know how you remember it, Jim, but I remember people calling for John Sillett's head. I can remember it. I remember Terry Butcher coming in, and a lot of people were quite pleased with it. I think they thought it was going to be the new era. He was coming as a player coach, wasn't he? And,
he was.
And of course, he hardly played. He was terrible.
Yeah, and we gave him a double contract.
Yeah,
we gave him a playing contract and a managerial contract, and the club had to go to the High Court to get out of the playing contract, I think.
Yeah,
because he was raking in the money.
I bet he was.
So Sean made his debut at Bramall Lane and scored, and he was a pretty regular for the rest of the season. I know it was 91-2, and it was a dreadful season, and we needed all those Don Howe 0-0 draws to.
Was it 6? Was it 6 or something?
It was 5 in a row, 4 in a row. 4 0-0s in a row. From Christmas to the end of the season, we only won 3 games.
Is that where we were at Villa last game of the season?
Yeah.
I can remember going with a mate of mine called Mark Elliott, who still goes at the City now, and we were sat actually in the Villa end, and I'd got a transistor radio because as soon as Cyril scored for Villa, we just started listening to the Luton Notts County match because you thought, well, that's it then, we're stuffed.
Yeah,
because we're not going to get a result here. And the cheers when Notts County, because Luton were winning, weren't they? At one stage, we were down.
They were.
We weren't going to be in the Premier League. And of course, that was the season they disappeared, Luton, and didn't come back till last season, did they?
No.
So yeah.
So Sean played over 100 games for the club.
I liked him, Jim. I thought he was a real good trier, a good battler.
He was
tenacious.
Yeah, and he played. I think the following season he must have had an injury because he only made 4 starts. But then he came back. He was virtually ever present in 93-4 and 94-5 until. And it was Big Ron really that ditched him. He probably didn't suit Big Ron's, flamboyant style. But he was a great trier.
I think he probably got rid of him to bring Kevin Richardson in, probably.
Yes. So he went to Derby, and in his first season at Derby, they won promotion to the Premier League. And he actually played for them in the Premier League in 96-7. Then he went to West Brom. He had 3 seasons at West Brom, 2 seasons at Tranmere, and 2 seasons at Kidderminster in the league, when they were in the league.
Yeah.
And then he went into non-league, played for Evesham, Redditch, and he ended up at Bodmin Town in Cornwall. And I think he still lives in Bodmin. Last I heard, he was running a campsite down in Cornwall.
I'll message his brother and find out. Actually, I'll do that. I'll find out where he is. I'll make it my mission.
Moving up to number 8, another from the same era, Paul Furlong.
Yeah, this surprised me because I can't remember him actually. I like Paul Furlong, but he didn't play that many games, did he?
He played virtually every game in 91-2.
But that was it, was it?
Yeah, we sold him, didn't we? That's that summer. We got quite a big fee for him. I seem to remember about 300,000.
That's wow.
I think we paid 100,000 for him, and we sold him for maybe 250 to Watford.
That's we did some good business out of these non-league players, didn't we? Really,
we did.
That's
And he was another who started well. He scored. He made his debut, first game of the season, 91-2, home to Man City. We lost 1-0. He came on as a sub. 4 days later, we had Luton at home. We won 5-0. And he came off the bench and scored.
right.
And he actually scored 4 goals in his first 8 games.
Did he score any more?
Not bad.
Did he dry up after that?
Yeah, I think he did. He did dry up. He didn't score between September and December. And then he didn't score another goal.
That's great.
But Watford saw something in him to sign him.
Well,
he did well at Watford the following year in the first division. Admittedly, he got 19 goals, and then 18 the following season, and then he joined Chelsea.
Yeah, and the question I would say to anybody is, in 93-94, who was Chelsea's record signing? And it was Paul Furlong.
Really?
Yes, 2.3 million deal.
Wow.
It was at the time. It was Chelsea's record signing.
God,
that's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, he didn't. He scored 10 goals in his first season at Chelsea and 3 the second season. So he didn't hit the heights really.
Well, the problem was Hullet signed was there and Mark Hughes, but Gianluca Vialli turned up.
Oh, right.
So he wasn't going to get in front of him, was he?
No. No. Furlong overlap Vialli. Who should we play on Saturday? Yeah.
I know, exactly. So he was at the start of the sort of the new era of Chelsea and all the foreign players, basically.
Yeah.
That's incredible. 2.3 million for him.
Yeah, but he played, he went to Birmingham. He played about 150 games for the Blues, scored 50 odd goals.
And apparently it was Birmingham City's record signing.
Was he?
Yeah, 1.5 million.
Wow. Then he went to QPR. You're telling me he was their record signing as well?
No.
But he helped QPR. They were in the old Division 2, which is the 3rd tier, and he helped them to promotion to the Championship. And then he went to Luton for a season, Southend, and Barnet for a season. So, yeah, where did we sign him from? We signed him from Enfield.
Right.
Yeah. So
his son's at QPR. He was at QPR, wasn't he?
West Brom.
West Brom, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Is it Darnell?
Yeah, Darnell. That's right. So West Brom, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Darnell's been around a bit. Yeah, QPR, Northampton, Swindon, West Brom.
Oh,
yeah, he's in there. He's in West Brom's first team, though, isn't he? Yeah, right back.
Yeah. I remember him at QPR. That's obviously when his dad was probably in and around the club.
But, in his whole career, Paul made almost 700 appearances. So that's
pretty
career.
good. That is really good, actually.
So up to number 7.
Number 7.
Going back a bit further now, Brian Joycey.
Oh.
Did you ever see him play?
Wow. If I did, I wouldn't remember him because of obviously when it was. Because, I started watching in 70, so he would have played. But, I'd have seen him, but I wouldn't remember him playing, basically.
Well, yeah, I remember him well. They signed him in the summer of '69 from the northeastern amateur team, North Shields,
right.
And he played for them in the amateur cup final. And did they win it or runners up? I can't remember. But it wasn't a big fee. Was it 50,000? I can't remember. Probably 25,000, something like that. But another one scored on his home debut. These non-league players, they come out of the woodwork and hit the ground running, don't they?
They run out of steam.
Yeah. Obviously, the club had Neil Martin and John O'Rourke at the time, so Brian's opportunities were probably limited. But he made his debut at the baseball ground the night we won 3-1 there, and wrecked Brian Clough's start to the season. And then 3 days later, made his home debut against West Ham. It was his first start, and he scored in a 2-2 draw. A great start. His nickname, apparently, was Charlie Buchan, because he came from the northeast, where Charlie Buchan came from.
Of course, he played for Sunderland and wrote the book, didn't he? He used to have the Charlie Buchan magazine and book and that. Yeah.
And he was a superstar back in the 20s.
Yeah.
So that season, can you remember what he's famous for?
Would it be the goal that got us into Europe or something like that?
It was, yes.
It was? Oh,
right.
Brilliant.
Yeah, at Molineux, he scored the only goal. Then that was the night we clinched the European place.
That must have been fantastic, Jim. I mean, obviously we should have been in Europe in '87, but I mean, to do it in the league, it was quite an achievement, because we had a couple of seasons of desperation, didn't we, trying to stay in the league?
Yes, we did. It was quite incredible, really, the turnaround that season. But it was really based on Noel Campwell's defensive outlook. They're very strong defence.
10 away wins?
10 away wins, yeah. And Joycey got 2 at Crystal Palace. I remember that day in a 3-0 win. He also scored 2 against Southampton at home. And just before the Molineux game, he scored in a 4-1 win at Nottingham Forest. He was mainly used as a substitute. He made 13 starts that season, 6 off the bench, scored 7 goals. That's a pretty good record, isn't it?
That's interesting, because there was only one sub in those days, so to have an attacker on the bench, that's quite positive thinking by Noel Campbell, really. So I suppose he set him up defensively. If we needed a goal, he'd have somebody to chuck on, basically.
Yes, yeah. I liked him, but his goal scoring fizzled out the next season. I think he made 16 starts. He only got 1 goal in the league. He did score against Trachea in the home leg in the Fairs Cup,
right?
But he didn't develop that potential we saw in the first season. He was a little bit cumbersome, and he was sold just at the start of 71-2. He went to Sheffield Wednesday.
It's a big hit there. I know there's lots of Sheffield Wednesday fans of a certain age who thought he was great.
Yes. Well, he went. It was a double transfer. Him and Dave Clements went to pay for Chris Chilton.
Oh.
Yes. Say no more.
Oh dear. Is that because Chris Chilton scored against us, so we signed him, basically?
Right. The Sheffield Wednesday, you're right, it was a massive hit. He scored 16 goals the first season, 19 the next, 12 the third season. And in total, he played over 150 games for the Owls. And then he went down to the 4th division with Barnsley and scored 26 goals in 76-7. And then he went into non-league, Bakewell, Frickley Athletic, Matlock Town, and somebody called Royal Oak.
It sounds like a pub.
It sounds like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
He's playing for his local.
Yeah. But he until he retired, he was he worked in it as a car salesman in Sheffield, which was probably a good job for a former player because you know, people going in buying cars and realise it's a Sheffield Wednesday legend, it might persuade him to buy or not.
Yeah, well, it depends who. Well, if he was a Sheffield United fan, he wouldn't buy off him probably.
No.
There's a little anecdote where apparently Mick McCarthy, when he was at Barnsley with Brian Joyce, Mick McCarthy used to clean Joyce's boots. Apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. So McCarthy was a player. Would have been a player at Barnsley then, was he?
Yeah, right. Yeah, at the start of his career. Yeah. You kind of forget that some of these players, even though they played in the 60s, were still playing when I started really remembering in the late 70s. Of course, it's only 10 years, isn't it? It's not that long, really. But
no,
I think what it is, you've got the transition of the black and white footage and into colour, haven't you? So the black and white era feels like a lot earlier than 10 years beforehand.
Yeah,
it feels so. It kind of felt really old, basically. But he's still around. Yeah.
So moving up to number 6, a modern hero, Max Biamu.
Oh yeah, good old Max, scorer of spectacular goals.
Oh yes, yes. So where did he come from then?
Sutton United. Was it Sutton?
He did. Yeah, fancy buying a player from Sutton United. And he joined in July 2017, so he was one of the early Robins signings.
Yeah,
and he had a strange start, didn't he? He wasn't one of those low non-league players who hit the ground running. It took him a long time to score a goal, didn't it?
Yeah. But he tried so hard, didn't he? I think he's a character, and like I said, he scored some absolutely fantastic goals and really important goals as well.
He did, yeah. And when you think about it, he was at the club for 4 fantastic seasons. You know, he won two championship medals.
Yeah, I felt sorry for him because was it Blackpool away where he did his cruise ship?
Was it? Was that in his final season?
I think there was one before. It was right at the start of the season, wasn't it? One of the first games, I think. I'm sure it was Blackpool away.
Oh yeah, because I
think it was a game where there's
Rotherham at home. In the promotions, oh no, that was the COVID promotion season, wasn't it? Do you know? My memory's not. Oh, it's 2018-19. It was at Blackpool, yeah.
Yeah, I can remember that we had the whole stand behind the goal, and there was hardly any Blackpool fans there in protest, weren't they?
That's right.
And I can remember on the halfway line, he just collapsed.
Yes.
And it's a shame because, I mean, you go back to that Notts County match, that little bicycle kick, and, you know, it was just brilliant.
Well, he just came good in the last 10 or 15 games, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
I think my memories of him was I loved him from the start because he was so wholehearted and we were just praying for him to get a goal. He just deserved to score, and it took a long time, and then he got that worldie against Yeovil. Do you remember?
The blaster, yeah.
Oh, even though we lost 6-2.
Yes. But then, I mean, the goal at Peterborough away, that sort of flying scissor kick that he did, that was sensational. He had that about him. It's just that it was so inconsistent, wasn't he? But you're right, his personality and the fact he worked so hard. And I mean, he's a fan's favourite now. He got a great reception at Legends Day, didn't he? Absolutely fantastic reception.
Yeah, and he is a lovely guy. I had a long chat with him. My grandson was presented the Player of the Year for the Former Players Association to Ben Sheaf after the after the final game, and Max was down there on the touchline, very friendly with the current players, many of them he'd played with, Liam Kelly, Ben Sheaf, and others, and he just is a charming guy. Do you remember when he got sent off?
I should do, shouldn't I? Really? Who was that against, Jim?
It was at St Andrews against Accrington.
I'd have been there as well.
Yeah.
What was that? I can't remember what for. What was it for?
It was for an elbow in the defender's face, and the defender made a meal of it. I thought he was very unlucky to get a red card.
That has gone out my memory altogether. Okay. Isn't that weird?
Anyway, 3 days later, he scored a hat-trick against Southampton under-21s in the Football League Trophy. Were you there for that?
No, I didn't. I know there was only about a couple of thousand, wasn't there?
Oh, I think there were a couple of hundred.
A couple of hundred, yes. At St Andrews it was, wasn't it?
Actually, 375 were there.
No, I wasn't there for that, no.
Yeah, he scored the winner in the 93rd minute against Southampton's under 21s. So Max won 2 promotions. He was mainly used off the bench in the League One promotion season, but he chipped in with some good goals. He got 2 in the Bristol Rovers FA Cup replay.
Yeah.
He got the vital goal, a late goal against Ipswich at home in the league just before Christmas. He got a goal against Blues in the FA Cup. That's in the second game, the replay, and he scored. I think he scored the winner against Bolton as well. He did a 90th minute winner against Bolton at St Andrews.
Yeah, like I said, he scored some important goals. I can remember definitely that's what he used to do. And
so he's I think he's a modern legend. So he's number 6. So into the top 5.
Top 5. This is an interesting choice.
This one will surprise you, I'm sure, if you've ever heard of him. Ernie Toseland, nicknamed Twinkle Toes.
It suggests he might be a winger.
Yes. Yeah. Now he was spotted playing. We're going back to the 20s here, Claudio. 1928. He played against City reserves for a team called Higham Ferrers Town. And he impressed somebody on the City staff because they signed him. And he went into the reserves. He was a flying right winger. He went into the reserves. His first reserve game, he broke his collarbone. And he was out for best part of a year. And he came back. He came into the side early the following season, 28-29 season, scored on his debut.
Of course he did.
Yes. We lost 4-2 at Watford, but Toseland scored the second goal, and he was phenomenal. Absolutely, this guy had pace to burn, and if you read contemporary press reports, people said he's the best player we've had since we came into the league. He was that good. He played 22 games, and of course, a player that good soon had the scouts from the big clubs eyeing him up.
So you're saying best player, but of course we'd been in the league about 7 or 8 years. Would that be about right?
Yeah.
We came in 1920, didn't we?
Yeah.
So, okay. So who came in for him?
Manchester City, who were a big club at the time. And I think they paid £3,000 for him, which was a lot of money in those days. A hell of a lot of money. And it would have been our record sale right up probably till the war, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Of course, Manchester City were a first division side, big club. And he played for them right up until the Second World War. 10 seasons, well, 11 seasons actually. He went on to make over 400 appearances for Manchester City. I'm surprised he never played for England, but I suspect that Stanley Matthews came along in the early 30s, and Matthews against Toseland, it would have been Matthews would get the nod every time, I would imagine.
Yeah, that was made up of about 7 Arsenal players as well, wasn't it? The England team.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Well, Arsenal had Joe Hume, who was an England international as well. Yeah, he's a legend at Main Road or at Manchester City. He played in the 1933 FA Cup final when they played Everton at Wembley, lost 3-0. So yeah, he was the sort of first player to leave Coventry City and make it in the big time. That's why I put him so high in my top 10.
Yeah, and he would have won the league with Man City as well, wouldn't he? They won the league, definitely.
Yeah, they won the league in 36-7, didn't they?
Yeah, and then were relegated the following season.
Yeah,
which is astonishing.
Could you imagine that now?
Man City got relegated next season.
Yes,
they won the league. Man United were relegated. The
Yeah.
following season, Man United got promoted and Man City got relegated.
Yes,
And I think they were relegated, but were only 15 points off winning the league.
Yeah.
It was the table was so tight. I mean, and the goal for and goal. I mean, I think the season before, did they something like scored 100, let in almost as many goals. It was bizarre. I mean, football in those days, well,
yeah,
it's definitely all about goals. There was no defending.
The City scored 100 goals in 4 seasons out of 5 in the 30s. So it was the thing to do: score lots of goals and concede lots of goals.
Yes.
So he played right up, almost up until the war. He actually left Manchester City in March 39 and went to Sheffield Wednesday, and played. Who were Man City were the second division side by then, obviously, because they got relegated. But Sheffield Wednesday was second division as well. And then the war ended his career, basically. He would have been 30, how old would he have been? 33, 34 when war broke out. So his career was over.
I mean, in all fairness, that's still an age back then. It's not now, but anybody over 30 still playing was classed as almost superhero.
I know. So that's number 5, Twinkle Toes. Number 4, Dave Boost.
Oh, interesting
City
choice.
legend.
Interesting choice.
Yeah. So where did Dave come from?
Let's think. Oh, obviously not Hale's Own.
No.
More Green.
More Green, yes.
More Green, yes.
They're the predecessors to Solihull Moors, aren't they?
Yeah, I think he played in the same team as my mate. Lad I went to school with, Phil Davis. He's played up front. He was touted by a lot of Midland clubs, but decided to stay in banking instead of playing professional football.
Yes. Now, we've talked about Sean Flynn and Andy Pearce, but Boosty came around the same time, just after Terry Butcher got sacked, actually. I don't know whether he was a Butcher signing that Don Howe sort of completed, but he came in January 92, and he went straight into the first team as well from non-league. Made his debut as a substitute at Carrow Road in a cup game where we lost 1-0. And then 3 days later, was back at Carrow Road for the league game, and he made his first start. So who did he play alongside at that day at centre half? Do you know?
93. Oh. Can I say Peter Billing again?
No, Peter Atherton.
Another Peter.
Yes.
He was solid.
Yes. It was a good team, actually, that day. Oggy, Brian Burrows, Phil Babb, Atherton, Boost, John Williams, Chris Greenman, Mickey Ginn, Robert Rosario, Mickey Quinn, Kevin Gallagher.
Yeah.
Not a bad team, is it? That was the team that finished 8th, wasn't it?
Yeah, well,
they were 4th. They were 4th in February.
You got goals with Gallagher and Quinn, haven't you? Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we finished. We were 4th in February, but we finished 15th. Oh, that's right. We went down 2 places on the final day in the second half. We drew 3-3 with Leeds. Do you remember?
Oh, we were 3-1 up with an injury time, weren't we? That's the day the Leeds fans decided to get on the pitch. Yeah. Was it Wallace who scored 2 for them in the dying?
That's right.
Seconds.
Yeah.
And was that the season after they'd won the league, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I had a bet with somebody at work who's a Leeds fan. I said, "I'll bet we finish above you next season." And Leeds finished 6th on bottom, and we finished above them. Yeah. And he never paid me. Oh. But I couldn't believe they won the league, to be honest, the year before. I was absolutely, yeah. But there you go.
So Boosty, he played about 60 games for the club, and obviously had that tragic injury at Old Trafford when he was, I guess he was cementing his place in the side, wasn't he? Who was he playing alongside? I presume Paul Williams. Liam Daish that day. But we had Boosty, we had Liam Daish, we had Paul Williams. I think Gary Breen came not long afterwards. So we had a lot of good central defenders.
Yeah, on the day we were doing okay at the time, weren't we?
We were. Well, we had a bad start in that 95-6 season, didn't we? Big Ron got moved upstairs, and Strachan came in, stepped up, didn't he? And things improved for a while, but then we slipped back into it in the last sort of 2 months of the season. We were great against the big clubs. We beat Chelsea, who were big, much bigger club then, and we beat Liverpool at home 1-0. I think Whelan got the winner, but we lost some silly game. We lost at home to Bolton. We lost at Middlesbrough. It was some sloppy results, but we won 2-0 at Wimbledon, didn't we? When Nuddy scored 2 to secure safety. That was after Booster's injury, of course, but that was a tragic injury, wasn't it?
Yeah, and because it's a rare injury as well. Really, there's not many players have had that sort of double break. No. And normally you get it after a proper challenge. Yeah, but that was just it looked like something and nothing when you see the footage. Sort of collided with Dennis Irwin, didn't he? I think his foot was just planted, and his weight went one way, and everything else went the other way.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave Boost. I mean, for what he does for the club now, absolutely brilliant. And the fact, I mean, poor guy, and he lost his leg. You know,
he did. Yeah.
And I played football against him in that charity game, the Leamington and Warwick supporters. We played the Legends 4 years ago, and he was marking me, and you know, he still knew what to do. He
didn't get a kick.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. He was sort of organising the defence, and you know, chatting to people and getting them all, you know, in line and doing what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And he just kept getting rid of the ball really quickly. You know, I thought, oh, this is impressive considering, you know, his mobility is restricted. Yeah, he could still move enough around a football pitch, and I think he does walk-in football now, doesn't he? Or plays for Leamington.
Well, he played at the CBS at the weekend in that six-a-side competition, and they won it. They did have Michael Doyle, Gary McSheffrey, and Patrick Sufo in it. Yeah. So let's move up to number 3, John Tudor.
Oh.
You probably never saw John Tudor play, did you?
I saw him play more for Newcastle United than Coventry, because obviously he was there. He used to partner Mark and McDonald, didn't he, up front?
He did, yeah.
So I remember him then. And my dad used to go on about John Tudor, saying such a good player, should never have sold him, that sort of thing.
I
don't remember him playing at Sheffield, but definitely at Newcastle.
No, well, we signed him from Ilkeston Town, who Midland League side in early 1966, and he'd had trials with everybody over the previous few years. How old? I'm just checking how old he would have been. He would have been 20, so he was quite a late comer, He I think he was quite prolific in the reserves, and then he got his chance early in the promotion season at Preston, scored a goal in his second game, and he was Bobby Gould's he was Bobby Gould's stand-in, but he would generally score a goal. He scored at Derby in a win. He scored at Huddersfield. He scored against Cardiff at home, at Hull away, Pompey at home. But he didn't really get a clear run until Bobby got injured just before the Wolves game at the end of the season, and John came in for those last 3 games, and he scored a goal in the final game against Millwall. And then obviously Bobby he kept Bobby out of the side for the early part of the season, and then they played together as strikers for a while. But he obviously wasn't as prolific. The step up to the first division, he wasn't as prolific. But a couple of times he moved back to centre half. No, more than a couple actually. He had a spell from Christmas right through till March where he played as a central defender alongside Maurice Setters.
Wow.
Really strange, and he was good in that role. And then obviously Bobby had gone in January, so he was back as a striker. And then the following season is when he left to go to Sheffield. He struggled scoring in that season. I think he only got 3 goals before he left in the November. And I'm just trying to think we had Tony Haitley by that time. And I'm trying to think who was he sold to pay for somebody? Quite possibly they hadn't paid for Haitley, and they had to sell Tudor to pay for Haitley, which was bad news, really, because he was a better striker than Tony Haitley, I can tell you.
Was Hannigan, was he about that time? Was he later?
He was the previous season he came in. Yeah. So he went on to Sheffield United. He dropped a division to go to Sheffield. They were a second division side, but he was an instant hit at Bramall Lane. I think he got 11 goals in half a season for them.
Right.
And he won promotion with them in 70-71 back to the first division. And then he moved on to Newcastle, and he was, he's a legend at St James's Park. As you say, playing alongside Malcolm McDonald. He always seemed to score against us, didn't he?
Yes.
Always.
So it's funny because I've got sticker albums going back to about 69, and maybe that's why, because obviously you wouldn't have been in one of the albums because they weren't playing in the top flight Sheffield. So my recollection of John Tudor was Coventry to Newcastle. The Sheffield United bit kind of gets forgotten about,
right?
Because I think I was too young to remember him being there, basically.
Yeah.
And all my other sticker albums from the mid-70s have all got John Tudor in black and white stripes.
Yeah.
So I always forget. I think, oh yeah, he went to Sheffield United, didn't he? After us,
Yeah.
I always thought he went straight to Newcastle, but obviously he didn't, did he?
No. Well, he played over 200 games for Newcastle.
Yeah.
So up to number two, another player from the 60s, Ernie Machin.
Yeah, a big favourite for a lot of Sky Blue fans of that era. Yeah,
well, Ernie they always said he was Jimmy Hill's blue-eyed boy. I think he was one of the first signings that Jimmy made. I think they paid a Lancashire club called Nelson £100 for Ernie. And Jimmy Hill just loved him. He would play him every week if he could. And he came in, so it would have been early 62, and he was in the reserves for the best part of a year. Made his debut. 62-3. He'd only been 19. 8th of April 63. So just after the FA Cup run ended in 63, Ernie got his chance, came into the side, played the last 6 games that season, but then he was a regular from the start of the following season, and he was in brilliant form, absolutely brilliant form. He was being tipped for England under 23 honours, and then he had a dreadful knee injury at Watford, home to Watford. And he put him out. Well, I think he came back in the January for one game, and he relapsed, and he was out. And that knee injury affected his whole career on and off. There's always a weakness there. So his career at Coventry was always injury. He only played 14 games in 64-5. Then he became a regular. He had 4 full seasons. He was in the second division championship team. Scored some vital goals. He got 11 goals that season from midfield. He was the captain after George broke his leg. He went on to play for us. Well, he played 11 seasons for Coventry. Made almost 300 appearances.
Yeah, you can see the kind of 11 seasons, 300 appearances. That's it's you probably expect more closer to 450, wouldn't you normally?
Yeah.
But
he always seemed to be bothered with injury, but a great servant for the club. He was a target for the knockers, though, especially in the second division days. You know, a lot of the fans didn't like him, didn't rate him, but Jimmy stuck by him and he delivered. A great player.
You almost get that with every manager, that there'll be a player they seem to play regardless of the fans not wanting them to play that player.
Yeah.
And it just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, in those days, it was Ernie Machin. I mean, we've had quite a few over the years where the class as the manager's favourite.
Yeah.
Um,
Sadly, he's no longer with us.
No.
He premature death in about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
So we're up to number one.
Well, before number one, I mean, I'm talking about Ernie Machin, 1972, became the first English football player to successfully challenge a fine suspension by the Football Association by video footage, which is
That's right.
for mistaken identity, or he got sent off. Was it at Newcastle?
It was, yeah.
And that was the first time ever they used video footage, and didn't use it again. I think they used it once more, then didn't use it again for years.
Yeah.
That paved the way for TV evidence, basically.
Yes. It went as far as VAR at Wembley.
Yes.
So number one.
Yeah. Do I do a drum roll?
Yeah.
I haven't got a drum roll, but I'll let's pretend there's a drum roll, Jim.
Stuart Pearce.
When you said the top 10 non-league to first 11, I thought surely he's going to pick Stuart Pearce number one.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
Has there ever been a player who just walked into a football team and looked like he belonged in that football team? That's Stuart Pearce, wasn't it? Incredible character.
He almost, from the start, looked the best player in the team.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. He went from Wealdstone. I don't know how he went under the radar of the London clubs, but Bobby Gould tells the story when he took his wife along to see Wealdstone play, and he left after 30 minutes, told his wife that, all right, I'm going to sign that fullback tomorrow. And he did. 25,000.
Wasn't he looking at somebody else or something?
I don't know.
I mean, there's all sorts of stories like he saw him make one tackle and he went, that's enough for me. I'm signing him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he played. I mean, I was looking at. He played 176 matches for Wealdstone.
Did he really?
Yes. Well, he was there from when he was 16, and he was like a regular. So it's amazing how nobody down south didn't pick him up.
No, and I vividly remember his debut against QPR at Highfield Road. He just looked like he played in the first division all his life.
Yeah, I just remember his tiny shorts and massive thighs, basically. And
I think we were lucky to get him for 2 seasons. And it was obvious he was going to go at some stage. And Nottingham Forest came along and snapped him up. And it's sad, really, that both his campaigns at Coventry were relegation battles, weren't they?
Yeah, I remember being at Stoke at night when he scored that penalty. Was it a Friday night? It wasn't normal.
It was a Friday night.
It was Friday, wasn't it? And of course, Ian Painter then misses a penalty, doesn't he? He could have got relegated there and then.
Yeah.
But that's incredible.
He saved our bacon. That 1-0 winner on the Friday night. Yeah. And then against Everton, that was his final game, that 4-1 win on the Sunday morning to keep us up. That was his final game. I think him and Butterworth were sold the following day, weren't they?
Yeah, and was Butterworth went for more money than Pearce or something? It was...
No, I don't think so.
I mean, he was still doing electrical work when he was at Forest, apparently. There's stories of him going around to Cloughie's house and doing, changing, rewiring and changing light bulbs and doing stuff like that. And that was his problem, wasn't it? Because he didn't know whether or not to sign a contract because he, at the time, was earning more money as an electrician.
Yes.
But you're right. You could see how good he was going to be. And I think most predicted he was going to have a really good career, and he definitely did. Have you ever managed to get him back at the Legends Day at all?
No. He does a lot of media work, I think.
Yeah.
But he made over 500 appearances for Forest, and then still carried on at Newcastle for 2 seasons, West Ham for 2 seasons, and even had a season at Man City, helped them win promotion in 2002. Played 38 games then. How old would he have been? He'd have been 40.
Yeah.
When he retired at Man City. So fantastic career.
And he likes one of my favourite bands, the Stranglers. So
does he?
He'll do
punk, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. He used to play the punk rock in the changing room, didn't he? He used to have the tapes blasting in the changing room before. Yes, you can see why he played like he did, probably.
So that's my top 10. Obviously, it's very subjective. It's only my opinion. Be keen to hear from other, listeners if they've got any other players they think deserve a mention.
Yeah, because obviously these are players who came straight to us. So obviously, people like Cyril Regis came from non-league, but he didn't come to us, did he? He went to the Albion.
Yeah.
So it's players who've come to us from non-league football, and there's some good players there, Jim.
Yeah.
And it's. Yeah, I suppose you look at someone like, the fellow at Leicester, he started in non-league, didn't he?
Jamie Vardy.
Jamie Vardy. And, so it can happen. You can get modern day heroes, coming out of non-league still. You just got to give them a chance. I mean, did Matty Godden start non-league?
He did, yeah. He did, and he went to Stevenage.
I can remember him saying that he actually dropped out of the Football League to play non-league football to get lots of games. That's how, that's how he wanted to forward his career and just get plenty of games. So it's credit to Matty Godden.
So before we finish, Claudio, just one thing. We were talking the other week about penalty shootouts. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I had contact from a guy called Mark from London who told me a very interesting fact, because we were saying we've lost 5 penalty shootouts in a row.
Yeah.
And Mark has told me that we've never, in those 5 shootouts, we've never kicked towards our own fans.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because the one we lost at Reading was down the other end.
It was.
I remember that as well. That's another one where we're kicking towards our fans.
Yes. So I think one of those was in the COVID season at Gillingham. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So there were no fans there, but and one was at Forest Green where there was virtually no fans there. But at St Andrews, we lost a shootout in front of their fans, and then 2 at Wembley.
Yeah, so we need to change it. Well, we need not to get to penalties, I think, is what needs to happen. So, are we going to call it a day? I think we will. We'll be back next week, and we'll. Any ideas what we talk about next week? Have we come up with anything yet? No. We'll give it some thought. We'll give it some thought. Yeah. So, if anybody's got any suggestions, let us know. Drop me an email. Yes, at claryborton@gmail.com. So anything. We could even talk about certain players or an era. Yeah. Anything whatsoever. But thanks again for listening, and it's always nice to get together and have a little chat, isn't it, Jim, about our history? Yeah. There's plenty of it. There's so much more we can cover. Yes. And thanks again. So it's ta-ra from me. Ta-ra from me.
get company dismissed. Thank you very much.